cruisers out there and all you non-cruisers, all you folks just tuned in to watch. I'm your virtual cruise host, Jason Benner, and thanks for tuning in. If you are with the Soul Train Cruise, welcome back, all my friends and family. If you are not with the Soul Train Cruise, but you are a Star Vista Live regular, welcome. Glad to have you for some new content from a different cruise. And if you're from outside the charter world, welcome in. We do these wonderful big musical charters all around the world. And this one specifically is for our Soul Train Cruise. And I have the honor of introducing you to, if you've not already met him, and chatting with a star, Mr. Trenton Davis. Trenton, we just did about half an hour of recording when I realized that something happened and we might have lost that whole half an hour. I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Thank you for having me. Soul Train people, Star Vista people, love you guys. I hope you catch the first half hour because it was great, and we're going to just keep going.
It was. We're just going to keep bantering. To bring people up to speed a little bit, just in case we don't have all that, really what we're talking about is the anatomy of a comedian, for lack of better terms, the anatomy of a joke, the anatomy of a comedy show, and we're kind of breaking down the science of it versus just, oh, so-and-so is so funny. So-and-so is very calculated. So-and-so is not just funny. He or she has learned how to tell that joke, where to tell that joke, when to tell that joke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I know we've bantered about it, so we're not going to keep dipping back into if we still have the first half. We're just going to pretend we don't, and if we do, it'll be bonus. Tell us a little bit about the anatomy of a specific joke. So we're talking about writing, but tell me how you break down a joke.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first, for me personally, and this is everybody's different, but for me personally, I start with what do I want to talk about, right? So I know, somebody said to me once, comedy is anger. All comedy is anger, but all anger is not comedy. So you go with, Jace, what do you feel passionate about, right? What are you angry about? I'll give you a specific example from me. This week, I just saw on something on social media where Adele and her husband are divorcing, and Adele is worth $190 million, and she has to pay her husband $140 out of that 190. Dude, that shit pisses me off. I'm angry. I'm angry at that.
That doesn't seem right.
I'm an artist. I am angry at that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my starting point, right? My starting point is I don't believe in marriage, or not so I don't believe in marriage. I don't like the way divorce is handled in America, right?
Yeah.
So now how do we make that into a joke? You make that into a joke by actually saying the exact opposite. So if my feeling is I don't like how divorce is handled, the joke is I love divorce in America. I think divorce in America is great because all I got to do is find the right woman and I'm a millionaire. I don't have to have a trait. I don't have to have a fucking skill. All I got to do is find the right woman and marry her, and I'm a millionaire, right?
For the win.
Right, that's it. And so that becomes the joke. And then so once you, what they say is state the opposite of how you feel, now support it, right? And so how do you support it? Oh, well, how do I go and find the women I'm looking for, right? Or once I found her, how do I make her divorce me? Oh, that's simple, right? That's pretty easy. Right now I get to write an entire 4 or 5 minutes about how I'm trying to make this woman divorce me, and she knows she's worth $190 million and doesn't want to divorce me, right? Yeah. I'm punching her in the face, and she's like, "One more, please, sir. I'll take another," right? And that's bad.
This 140 million feels better than that feels bad.
Right, there we go.
That's the anatomy of the joke, right? That's the anatomy of the joke. You're not condoning spousal abuse. You're talking about how the joke works.
Right.
And I mean, and then, in dealing in speaking with and having the pleasure of knowing a lot of comedians, there's also and I don't know if you use the same term, but it's kind of a weird term, but there's joke milking, right? Then you figure out once you've got your, wow, this is a great bit. Then you take that bit and you go, how do I turn this 3-minute bit into a 30-minute bit? How do I turn this into a 20? How do I milk this out? Because then it goes from you describing how you're trying to get divorced to make millions to you educating other people how to do it. I'm gonna write a book.
Yes.
Wherever that milks out to.
100%. And you're using the term milk. And I would tell people, and I said this in the initial 30 minutes, watch Louis C.K.'s last special, the most recent one called Sincerely. To your point, he does a great job of having a premise And what we call it is milking it for every last joke. You just keep hitting the well, going back to it and hitting it. And he does a great job of doing it. And to your point, that's how you take a 5-minute premise and turn that into a 20-minute bit. Yeah. Right. And so when you watch a Louis C.K., Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, or hopefully Trenton, when you watch that, you'll see the entire set may only be about 3 or 4 subjects, right? Yeah. But those 3 or 4 subjects are going 10 to 15 minutes apiece, right? Sure. And he's going as far as it can go, and people are laughing, and that's what we call in the comedy world belly laughing, right? Yeah. So you get laugh, 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 belly laugh, and then another one, then another. That's it. And then eventually you're like, okay, I need a break. And when you get that break at that 10 or 15 minute mark, then guess what he's doing? Now he's shifting chapters, right?
Now he's got a new chapter.
He or she, there we go.
And you're just going to go into your next premise. People don't. One of the hardest things in comedy, and you see it a lot with up and coming comedians where they struggle, is the art of dead air or dead space. That's for me, that's always been a true indicator when I'm watching someone who is a comedic assassin versus watching someone who still is a little unsure. Talk a little bit about dead space, dead air.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So again, the first 5 to 6 years of comedy, you're trying to figure out how to be funny, and you're afraid of silence. You're afraid of dead space.
Terrified of it.
Terrified, right? The great ones, same names, Louis C.K., Bill Burr, once they get to 15, 20 years, you love the dead space. Yeah. The dead space is your friend. In some respects, the dead space is the punchline, right? Case in point, everybody in the world knows this line I'm about to say. When Cat Williams says, he asks a question, he says, "Don't worry, I'll wait." The dead space is the punchline, right? And so, and he's another great, right? Yeah. And so it is such a tool, right? It's such a tool to use once you're ready for it. Once you're okay with the audience not making a sound and not being silent. Because being silent is scary when you're new.
Even if people don't know Cat Williams, I guarantee you they know who Johnny Carson is. For sure, right? You go back to Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson perfected the look and the timing of the look and the quiet moment. Yes. He didn't have to say the line; he could insinuate. And there's something about dead space too, where if you insinuate that there's the joke there, everyone fills it with their own joke. That's funny,
and that's why it's even better. Yes,
and that's why it's even better, because you just told 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 people their own joke in that moment, because they put it in their own head. As dirty, as clean, as right, as left as they want to be, they just, and that's where, someone would say something, then Johnny would do that slow. And that's where, right? That, the Johnny, and that was the joke.
That was the joke, man. And that was the joke. Comedy for me has taught me so much just about communication, about listening and watching. What people also don't get, and again, we're missing this now because of this quarantine and where we are, is I think it's 75, 80% of communication is nonverbal, right? And so when people say, "Oh yeah, just all you need for comedy is just get a mic," and no. I need the lights to be a certain way. People don't realize that I don't want the room all black. I need the room a little bit lit so I can see the interaction that I'm having with the people, right? And so everything that you just said, that silence and Johnny Carson making that look, all that communication is nonverbal. Yeah. Every single one of that, right?
Well, it's interesting too, because to your point about the room, when we're breaking down comedy, explain a little bit in your terms, why do you want a smaller, tighter room than a big open room?
Yeah. So we talked about the Soul Train cruise, and I had the opportunity to perform in the BB King room on the Soul Train ship. And I remember going down and I looked at it, low ceilings, great, spread out, but the people can be, as close to the stage as me touching you right now. Yeah, they're tight. Oh, it was great, right? And so from a comedy,
and they're tight to each other.
Yes.
Which I know this is not the appropriate time to talk about that with social distancing, but in these venues, everyone is shoulder to shoulder.
It's shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. And so that is, from a comedian's perspective, that's a comedy dream, right? The ironic thing is, when you talk about the Soul Train cruise, mentally you go to music.
Yeah.
And in music, you want tall ceilings so the music can bounce off and get to everybody. But in comedy, you want small ceilings. You want small confined spaces so that if I do a whisper or a look, everybody can see it, right? And so, the venue is so key. And I want to bring up one thing. If anybody remembers, and I know I'm aging myself, I'm dating myself, but if anybody remembers Ray, with Jamie Foxx and Ray, and there was a part in that movie where Ray, who's Jamie Foxx, was singing, and his manager says, "Bring the house lights down." And it changed the entire mood of that concert. And those are the things that are the art of performing and all of what we do, you know?
And also for people that don't understand or know, and it's a little different for comedians than it is for musicians, but explain and discuss the fourth wall, or the concept of the fourth wall.
Yeah. So with you're right, but I'm noticing, and this is a whole nother conversation that it'd take us another hour. A lot of comedians want to be musicians, and a lot of musicians want to be comedians, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll see a lot of those techniques used in either one. But for comedy, the fourth wall there's a, for lack of a better term, imaginary space.
Like a TV screen.
Yeah, like a TV screen that I don't want you to come through, right? I don't want you to get so mad that you come on stage and come through this, but I do want to get close enough where you're thinking about it and where you see it, where we're having that connection. I think, in my opinion, the best use of the fourth wall that I've seen in the last 15 years, Patrice O'Neal, Elephant in the Room. And
Patrice O'Neal is a genius.
Oh, genius.
He was, I mean, fearless. Woo.
Oh gosh, the things that's a whole nother. We could have a conversation just about Patrice, and I'd be happy about it, right?
Joe Rogan and those guys talk about him a lot with reverence, with absolute reverence.
Yeah, and how do you not, right? Yeah. But he comes in, and his first, and I don't want to give people the special, but his first line in the special is breaking the fourth wall. He comes in, grabs the mic, says, "Look at you, white woman. You're a top shelf. Look at you. You are big," and breaks the fourth wall, right? Because she's thinking, all right, you're going to do the show, and I'm in the audience. You're not going to mess with me. I'm not going to mess with you. I'm going to laugh when I'm supposed to laugh. And he comes in and immediately breaks the fourth wall, right? And it changes the arc of the rest of the show. And by the way, one of the best specials in the last 2
unbelievable. Unbelievable. And to your point, breaking the fourth wall also opens up, it makes, we're all in this together versus I'm sitting on my couch watching you on TV. A TV show, and the reason I bring up TV is it's a great example of it doesn't break the fourth wall.
Right.
The Office broke the fourth wall.
Yes.
Every time someone looks at the camera, they're looking at you at home, right? Yes. They're bringing you, they're now aware of you. The actor, the artist, the comedian, the musician is aware of you specifically, and I'm pointing into the camera, right? It's aware of you right there. And that's a tactic. It's a fourth wall tactic.
Yes.
It's not meant to be a play on its own, and then the audience is here, and you do you, and I will react as I react, and neither one of them matters, so to speak. They matter. And
they matter, and they work together. He again, I'm not going to give the Patrice O'Neal set. He does a bit about he says your value is measured by how long people would look for you if you went missing. And then he specifically asked one person in the audience, how long do you think they would look for you if you got missing? That is breaking that fourth wall. And she's like, I don't know, right? Yeah. But it's such a great mental technique, and he did it wonderfully. He did it wonderfully.
There's a lot of comedians out there, who've made an entire career out of playing into the crowd, right? They ad-lib, they improv, and I think that's, the word improv and the word ad-lib, I think for a true stand-up, and you can speak to this, please, but in my experience and the people I've performed with and worked with over the years, it's a Rolodex, right? The longer you've been performing, you have a Rolodex of lines and jokes in your head.
That's
So
it.
they see you and they go, oh my God, he's so quick. And
Yes.
you, friends, you are very quick. But what you're quicker at isn't necessarily a brand new line. It's knowing when, where, and how to reproduce the line that you've seen work 100 times.
100%, 100%, right? So the comics, I'm if any comics are watching this that do a ton of crowd work, they're gonna hate me. The comics that have a ton of crowd work, exactly what you said, have this Rolodex of information. And if anybody ever wants to really see the art in it, watch 2 shows back to back, and you'll see the exact, with a whole different audience, you'll see the exact same content, right? So even comics that have that do crowd work, they have a set. Right? They have a set. They know exactly where they want to go, and they know from years and years of practicing this where the audience. I know if I say to a guy, "Okay, what do you do?" He's going to give me a couple different answers. Oh, you're working in an office, do you? Now you can make a joke about. Oh, you're a plumber. Oh, now you can make. So you know exactly where you want to go, and you know for the most part what answers you're going to get. Right?
Which also, though, I think it's important to note, and to your point, if comedians are watching this or if people are watching this. In regards to that, there's no disrespect to those that do crowd work because it's still very difficult.
Oh, it's difficult.
If you don't have that Rolodex and you don't have the fast fire to pull to the right, oh, flip, 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 this one works.
Right.
If you don't have that, then your crowd work sucks.
Oh, you're in trouble.
And 9 times out of 10, you did create an original line or content for each section of your Rolodex.
Yes.
So it is all your material. You're just recalling it. And so,
yes.
For people watching, please understand that crowd work is very, very difficult. And it's original, but it's not original that one time in that one moment. That whole show of crowd work is not brand new crowd work. And that's no disrespect, Kevin Hart is very funny. Kevin Hart is a very funny dude, and he does these monster tours, but it's a produced set. And Dave Chappelle and all these guys, right? They're creating these monster sets, and that's what it is. It's a set.
Yeah, and people don't realize that, are not you, I'm speaking of, but people that are not in the game don't realize when a Dave Chappelle, when a Kevin Hart, when they do that produced set, they've done it over 100 times.
Oh yeah, that's not their first set. They shot the special on day 300. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And by the way, it's a lot of times they've shot the special, it didn't go well, and they're like,
"10 times."
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and you can always see too, and I can appreciate it. Again, I'm not knocking it at all. I can appreciate the production value to it. That if you watch, you can tell. If you pay really close attention, you can tell that it's done over 3 or 4 different nights.
Yeah.
They take the harder punch and the harder laugh of night 2, and they tag it to the cleaner delivery of night 1, and then and there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with it. One of the best performances I've ever seen is when Chris Rock did. Remember, he did the exact same set in New York, in London, and in South Africa. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, and I tell comics, I say, look, think about how great your material has to be, where you can get the exact same line in London, New York, and South Africa, right? That material has to be so
masterclass.
Oh, it's a masterclass. That's the best word for it. It's a masterclass, right? That is another level.
It is. And I think, the more famous the person delivering, I do think there is some caveat granted from the beginning, right? If you walk into a space as Trenton Davis and that space doesn't know you versus you walk into a space as Trenton Davis where you've performed enough times that everybody knows you, or whatever that discussion is. If you're Chris Rock where no one's heard of you, or Chris Rock where you're Chris Rock, that you're given a little more grace. You're given a little more laughter up front. Like, he's funny. I know he's funny.
Yes.
So if I don't laugh, maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're what I call it is it's your crowd. So there's nobody that happened to walk into a Dave Chappelle show.
Right? You knew what you were doing. Yeah.
You knew exactly where you were going tonight, right? Yeah. Where at my level, people happen to walk into a Trenton Davis show. They thought they were going to trivia night and it happened to be comedy night, right? And so you're absolutely right. That's a little different. I'm having to win these people over. But at this level, Dave Chappelle is not winning anybody over. They knew
Yeah.
they were going to see Dave Chappelle. They know what they're gonna, they kind of know what they expect, and then he delivers it, right? And so, and you have your good and your bad. The good part is I get to be fresh and give them something they never expect. Dave Chappelle, though, he has a level that they're already expecting greatness, right? They're expecting Michael Jordan level comedy, and he has to give them that, right? So that's a challenge.
I mean, and that's actually a great segue. I mean, and we're not, I'm going to use Chappelle as an example, but I'm not talking about Chappelle. I'm talking about entertainers in general. Chappelle went on hiatus. He left at what, 43 million on the table and walked away, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the reasoning he gave, well, he didn't give, what I loved about it was he just walked.
Yeah.
People tried to find him. He's living in South Africa. Oh, Chappelle's lost his mind. No, he didn't respond to anybody. He just, and I mean, that was slow clap, beautiful, right? And then when he came back, he addressed it in a couple of his specials, and he just was like, nah, it just wasn't, And he kind of talked about it and went into it. As a comedian that's coming up, and I mean no disrespect by that, because I say coming up, well, to you and to anybody watching, just so we're very clear, your aspirations are not small clubs. Your aspirations are not to be a comedian that shows up and passes the hat at the end of a set, right? So when I say coming up, I don't mean you're not established and haven't made it, as much as I mean you're not at the level that you yourself want to be at.
100%. I'm with you 100%. Agree.
Is there a level, though, because we talked about this sitting at the bar at Harvey, is there a level that you kind of go, I mean, Chappelle hit that level, right? Where he went, I didn't want this. I don't want this.
Yeah.
There's 43 million for your next. I don't need, I'm good. Like, not just because he doesn't need the money, but it was bigger than that for him.
Everything that came with it.
All the control and all the people that were demanding and expecting. And he was like, I didn't get into it for this.
Right.
I mean, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't mean to put words in Mr. Chappelle's mouth, but the way he came about it was I applauded him for how he said it. Does that cross your mind? As you think about it?
Oh, 100%. Like you said, you and I were talking about it at the bar there at Harvey's. And I think it's as strong as setting boundaries. And we need to do that in our personal life. We need to do that in our professional life. We have to set boundaries, right? And Chappelle did. He was like, I'm not going to allow any allure of money to overtake my boundaries of what I want in a family and blah, blah, blah. So for me, the joke I used at Harvey's is I said, by no disrespect to Hannibal Buress, I said, I want to be Hannibal Buress level famous, right? And Hannibal Buress can still walk down any street in America and not be bothered, right? He can go to anywhere he wants and not be bothered. At the same time, he can go to at least any major city, maybe not minor, maybe not Fresno, but he can go to LA, Chicago, New York, blah, blah, and he can get 2,000-3,000 people to come watch him perform, right? That's the level I want to be. And I look at it, I say, okay, 5,000 people, $20 a ticket, that's $100,000. I'll take it all day long, right? But I can also be a volunteer at my daughter's school, and I don't need bodyguards
security
at my daughter's
there,
school. Yeah. So that's the level that I want. Chappelle, and I said this just the other night when I was talking to somebody. I said, I'm sure when Chappelle was writing a dick joke, he didn't think this dick joke is going to take me to the White House 3 times. I mean, that's how big he performed with Michelle and Obama 3 times. Nobody thinks this dick joke is going to take me to the White House, right?
This is that White House level dick joke right here. Yes.
That's exactly right? This is White House level dick joke, right? Nobody thinks that, right?
New category.
But he got there, and God bless him. And I'm not gonna say I wouldn't want to meet Michelle and Barack, but I want that middle level, what I call Delroy Lindo. You know who he is? Delroy Lindo, if anybody doesn't know who he is, Google him. He's in every movie that you've ever seen. He's in every movie, but nobody knows who he is, right?
Unless you're in the industry.
I want that level of fame. Yeah.
What do you think is the tipping point in your experience? And with, I know you know a lot of the guys who have made it bigger, and you know a lot of guys who haven't.
Right.
And I guess by that I mean, whoever your pick is for the greatest basketball player of all time. Let's just
Yeah.
say, for my stance and argument, I love Michael Jordan as the GOAT, right?
Gotta be, Mike. Gotta be.
People can love other people, and I get it. There's the LeBrons and the Kareems and the Magics and the fair enough. Everyone has their argument. For this discussion, Mike is the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
If we look at Mike as the GOAT, do we have to look at the fact that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player that we know of?
That's unfair. You're saying there's somebody else out there that we never saw?
That we never saw. They didn't make it. They blew out a knee. They blew out an ankle. They weren't in the right place at the right time. They got caught up in some nonsense, and I mean, no disrespect to Mike. I think he's the greatest to ever lace him up.
Right.
But are there some out there who could have been at least on that level? Did we miss out on 3 or 4 Kobes and some LeBrons and some people and some Shaqs that just got caught up in the wrong thing or played a different sport or, are there comedians out there who went in the right place at the right time?
Oh man, oof. All right, now we're getting into it. We're in it now. All right. So this is what I will say, right? Definitely hands down, the funniest person will not always be the most successful comedian. Yeah. Right? Many people would argue, and I'm not one of those. Many people would argue Kevin Hart is not funny. Now, I love Kevin Hart in addition to his content because of all the stuff he does behind the scenes.
I think he's funny. I think he's very funny.
But others, whatever. So my comment is this. Hollywood is a fickle beast. And Hollywood wants certain things at certain times. And I'll tell a very short story. But I performed in the NBC Stand Up for Diversity. NBC has a diversity project that they do every year. And it's a big deal if you make it to the finals. It's a big deal because you get to meet with all these NBC folks, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so I auditioned for this particular contest 4 years straight, didn't make it to the finals until the 4th year. And so what I would say to anybody watching is what it tells you is keep trying. No matter what, keep trying. You're not always going to make it on your first go round. Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. You got to keep trying. Anyway,
Scottie Pippen grew a foot in college.
Yeah, it helped to be 6'6". You're right. So fast forward, I make it to the finals. I go and do the finals. It's all these producers and NBC. Literally, I thought it was going to change my life. I called my mom, like, hey, you can quit your job. Go down and look at a Jaguar. It's a wrap. I'm done. I go do this finals, and I kill it. It's 9 of us. I kill it. I mean, to this day, I did not win. To this day, knowing I didn't win, I still wouldn't change a word in my set. And that's how strong of a set I had. I go outside after my set. I said, hey, I just killed it. I'm going to win this. Go outside, talk to my manager. My manager says to me, hey, Trenton, I know you did a great job, blah, 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 but I got to tell you, NBC wants a black woman to win this year. So unless I can grow a vagina in the next 2 seconds, there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to win this competition. And it hurt, but it was also very eye-opening, right? And so to your point, the reality is there's politics and everything. People want to work with who they like. There's things going on in society with Me Too where we need a woman, right? We know for a fact within the next 12 years, we're going to have a woman president. We just know it.
And rightfully so. I mean,
rightfully so. Yes, rightfully so. But we know it. And so my point is to answer that question very candidly, there's people out there that are probably funnier than Chappelle, probably better than Michael that we'll never see. We'll never see.
Which is crazy, right? Because it's crazy to think of, and I idolize Chappelle. I think Chappelle's as good as it gets. The way his delivery, his thought process, his whole, I'm a huge Chappelle fan. And so it's almost blasphemous to think that there's potentially someone out there who's funnier. But that person could just be sitting in the living room and had stage fright and never gave it a shot, but murders at every family get together and murders, exactly right. Goes to the bar and kills everyone at the bar and then just goes home
And one of my favorite that a lot of people may not know, but I know you'll know, one of my favorite acts that's he's kind of what I would say under the radar, but kills it, Lil Duval.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would say under the radar because he has 5 million Instagram followers. Yeah. But my point is, he doesn't do Hollywood. When
He's
I mean
not Chappelle and Kevin Hart level.
There we go. There we go. But look, he's living his best life. He sells out every show, owns his own plane, lives in the Bahamas. He is happy, right? Yeah. He is happy.
You know, and I think that also begs, you brought up a second ago that there's a time and a place and a consideration for what society wants and needs and what other people want and need. And, you know, I think I went and saw Kings of Comedy when it opened on opening night, right? I went and saw Kings of Comedy. And I remember sitting there and I was dying, first of all. I mean, dying, gasping for breath. Just all four of them are stupid funny. And I remember thinking, though, that how do you select those four people, right? Because then on the other end, you had the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, right? Which was catered to a completely different audience, but had the same effect for a different audience.
Yes.
Same effect, right? Those boys had, a, you know, Bill Engvall and you know, Foxworthy and Ron White and Larry the Cable Guy had the same effect, just a different crowd, right? But it was the same concept. Same idea. And then there was the Queens of Comedy, right? And so they kind of, but you have to pick who fits in each one.
That's
you know, and who's to say who's funnier or not funny and who kills and who doesn't kill. And it's and even going that once you pick, then you even got to decide what order they're going in. First, second,
right? Because
Steve Harvey hosted, right? Harvey hosted.
That's exactly right.
So he got his 40 minutes over 4 spots.
That's exactly right. But Steve Harvey was hosting. But if you remember in the beginning, D.L. Hughley was hosting in the beginning, and then they were like, "Nah, let's switch it out." But what's funny is if you watch the documentary around it, everybody knew Bernie's going last. Nobody
wants to follow him, right?
Nobody wanted to follow Bernie.
Nobody
wanted to follow Bernie.
And that's another thing, I guess, for the average person watching who doesn't necessarily fully understand as well. When you're discussing order, there is a distinct. Comedians know each other. Yes. And if you're at a club and you see so and so walk in to do their open mic, you know right then and there, can I go early? Can I go early, please? I don't want to follow because I know his 8th, 9th, and 10th minute are murder. And I don't want to go out after that.
It's going to destroy the crowd. It's going to kill the show, right?
His first 7, I'm better than him for the first 7, but his 8, 9, and 10 are destruction. And I just don't want, I don't want to follow it.
I'm going to tell you, so to follow up on that story that I told you about the NBC thing, went out there, killed or whatever, didn't win. And so you didn't win. All 9 candidates got to do what we call NACA. NACA is National, Association of College Activities. Yeah, National Association of College Activities.
A tour?
And so, exactly. And so all 9 go. We're with NBC. And I asked the NBC person, I said, hey, for our NACA showcase, do you have the order? She says to me, no, we don't have the order yet. I said, okay, cool. And then she says, but you're going last. And I said, well, if you don't have the order, how do you know I'm going last? And she says, well, nobody wants to follow you. Then I said, well, if nobody wants to follow me, why didn't I win? Silence, right?
Where's the chick who won? Put her at the
end. Yeah. Right. And by the way, the person who won is a great person. She's now on, well, nobody's on now, but when things go back to normal, she's now on The Daily Show. Her name is Dulce Sloan. She's great. And so I'm not shitting on her at all.
No, great. I don't take it that way at all.
Yeah, but it's just, it is what it is. Again, I know we're repeating ourselves, but sometimes the top talent is not always the one that's most recognized. But I do think what that means is just be patient. Eventually it'll happen, right? It may not happen when you want it, but eventually it'll happen.
I think it's interesting, too, how many people, and actually I'll ask this as a question.
Sure.
Comedy, the concept of comedy is terrifying, right? I mean, Seinfeld's got the age-old joke that it's actually one of the top 2 fears in the world, just after, or was it just over death? Death is number 2.
Just before death. So public speaking is the number 1 fear. Death is the second one.
And, that's Seinfeld's old line. So technically at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Right.
And with that being said, how does one decide they can go on stage? How does one decide that they can pick up a mic and stand in front of all those people looking at them in a society that is desperately afraid of judgment?
Oh, that's a great question. And I don't know that there's an answer. And I don't mean this arrogant. You either have stage fright or you don't, right? That's the reality. Yeah. I've been on stage from church and whatever. I've been on stage for years. And I really think that what makes the difference is not, are you willing to get on stage? Are you willing to fail? If you're willing to fail on stage and come back the next day and come back the next day and come back the next day, then you have what it takes to be a great comedian. I'll have young comedians ask me, Trenton, do you ever have a bad set? And I just laugh. And I said, do I? I said, dude, I have bombed, and I'm not making this up. I've bombed over 100 times, over 100. I said,
explain bombing to the average listener. Explain bombing. Explain it, what it is, and then explain the feeling.
How it feels. Yeah. So what it is as a definition is the audience not enjoying your set. They're not feeling you. They're not laughing.
They're just not feeling you.
They're just not feeling. And by the way, there's different types of bombing, right? So bombing in a white rooms are normally more subdued, and they're nice. They're like, now they won't shit on you. They'll just be quiet. Well, we'll be quiet.
You're not getting gonged.
Right, you're not getting the gong.
Yeah.
But bombing in a black room, not only are they are gonging.
And they're letting you know. They're letting you know.
I had to do, this really happened. This is how you know how far we've come. I did a fish restaurant in the south side of Chicago.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It was called Outriggers. And I bombed so bad, a guy wanted to fight me because he wanted his money back. He wanted to fight. He was like, I'm going to beat your ass for making
You ruined the fish. Your punk ass jokes ruined all the fish.
We had a horrible night. We got a babysitter for this bullshit. He hated me, right? And so bombing from that perspective is the worst feeling ever. And actually, it's the second worst feeling ever. The worst feeling is after bombing is riding home with your girlfriend. Oh my God. And she saw you bomb. And it's like, and I hope this never happened to anybody. It's like going out to a club with your girl and getting in a fight and getting beat up.
Yeah. And then riding home.
Right. And riding home. And she's, you all right, baby? You like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. I'm all right. I'm fine.
Yeah. You should see the other guy. I was there. Shit.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
But it's necessary though, man. You learn more from that fall than any. And I think and I don't mean to step on you.
No, you're good.
People go out and they experience success, right? The amount of people that you know, that I know, because we've talked about all the folks that don't go on stage. But there's a lot of people on the other side, right? That go, oh, I'm funny. I kill at the office, bro. I kill at the bar. And it's like, okay, we've all seen him or her. We've all seen him or her at an open mic night, right? And they go out and they just machine gun fire because it's quiet. And so now they're just rapid firing, shotgun firing jokes, and everyone, which just makes people draw back more because now they sense desperation.
That's exactly right.
And
and they burn through their 5 minutes of material in 2 minutes. Yeah. They burn through it in 2, right? Yeah. Now they don't know what to talk about. Now they're like, I love watching it. You always see, what should I talk about? And I'm like, this shit's gonna get bad now.
It's watching that slow spiral.
It's like watching a train wreck, but you need to do it.
You have to.
You have to do it. That same place that I was telling you, that Outriggers. So this is a funny story. So I started in churches, but I went to high school, all white high school, blah, blah, blah. And so I was more comfortable in white crowds than I was black crowds. And so I said, I'm not comfortable in black crowds. I'm going to go to this Outriggers and I'm going to figure this out. And so they asked me to host every week. So I was Martin Lawrence every week, and I was bombing every week. But and did it all summer for I'd say for 4 months. Every Friday, Saturday, 4 months, I was at this black crowd. By the end of the 4 months, I figured that shit out. And now
you were Dolomite.
I was right. That's exactly right. But I'm not joking when I say this, Jason. I look up and almost to the date, right? 10 years later, I'm doing the Soul Train cruise, right? That Outriggers catfish restaurant prepared me for the Soul Train cruise 10 years later, man. I'm telling you. It was the best thing going.
It's a crazy thing. And and I think where we were going with that a second ago is you have to bomb. You have to, right? You have to feel it. You have to know the sound of impending doom. You have to know that is silence and disappointed silence are two different sounds. They're two different sounds, right? They're two different environments. Yes. You know the room when it's dead quiet, but they're hanging.
Yes.
They're waiting for you. And you know the room when it's dead quiet because their arms are crossed and they're leaning back, right? Those are two different silences. Yes. And you don't know that until you struggle a little bit. You don't know that until you've had to go through some chunk of time. Just, all right, listen, we're going to get through this together. Like, we're all going to push through this.
One of my favorite terms, and you'll hear this only in a black room, when they're silent, you'll hear, bless his heart.
Yeah.
That's a bad silence.
It's the teeth suck first, though. It's the teeth suck first. It's the teeth suck that comes before it.
Right, yeah. Oh.
Bless his cotton socks. Yeah. Oh, I hope he's serving the fish later.
Right. I hope that little boy has a day job, because Lord, he's going to need it.
Where's his girlfriend? Where's she sitting? Because she's not going to like this.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, for anybody listening, I've had more of my share of those nights. And thank God, right? I had them for 10 years in Chicago. Chicago's one of the hardest places to start. Chicago is a comedy town, right? They don't want you to cut off the Bears or the Cubs to watch this guy tell dick jokes. They're like, get off. And so you learn so much, man. But it was good. It was all worth it.
Where, of the rooms you've performed all over the world, where has been, and it doesn't have to be a specific place if you don't want to. It doesn't have to be the name of an actual establishment as much as the area. Where's your favorite places to perform, and where do you kind of go, ooh, this is gonna be tough, but I'm ready?
Yeah, so right, not just saying this. Obviously, Soul Train Cruise, one of my was such a it was a personal accomplishment. It was a big deal. Felt like a star all week. Felt like a star.
You are a star,
I'm kicking it and hanging out with Peebo Bryce. Like I remember taking a picture with Peebo, and I'm like, who the hell thought I was going to be taking a picture with Peebo 10 years ago? So,
you're on the T-shirt, man. Like I said, you're on the T-shirt.
I'm in the elevators. It was
good,
yeah,
exactly.
So there, Vegas, I do the Comedy Cellar. Oh, such a great room. And then when I do the Comedy Cellar, I'm with killers. Like last time I did it, it was Rich Voss, Mia Jackson, John Fish, what's his name? So many great. Bobby Kelly, just huge name, like big names, right?
Which is funny because if you catch a night where pros are working, you catch a night in one of those places where the average person probably hasn't heard of any of the names you just said. The average everyday non-comedy person,
right.
But if they went that night, they would know every one of those names.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
There's so many good mid-levels.
The Comedy Cellar is such a huge name in comedy as far as clubs. Probably in names of clubs, probably top 5 most recognizable names in the country, right? Yeah. Comedy Cellar, Improv, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so you're working with these people. They're all pros. They're all headliners.
Those are pros.
I'll be honest with you. I was scared. This was my first time at the Cellar. And I'm like, fuck, man, I'm with blah, blah, blah. These people, I'm scared. And but eventually, because of the 10 or 15 years of work, you go in and it's muscle memory, and all of a sudden, it's just like anywhere else, right? And so that's great.
I think comedy is interesting too. Before we go into where you don't want to perform, I think comedy is interesting too because it's you were saying, and I think we got cut off. I think we didn't record that bit. Sorry, in the first chunk of this. That you still get anxious before you go on stage still, right? You still get that little bit of nerves. You still get a little bit of, ooh, what's this going to be like? Your first big laugh in the structure of a show it's just this wash of, let's go. All right, let's go.
Exactly right. And it's, now I'm in it.
I'm
in.
That's
exactly right. It's like the first 2 or 3 pedals once you get back on a bike after you haven't rode in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You're feeling it.
Before we jump into that, where's tough to perform? Where's tough?
Yeah. So I'm not going to say the names because I don't want to be an asshole.
No.
But I will say this, right? For people that don't know, there's what we call a room and a B room. And an A room are the improvs, comedy sellers, comedy magic club, comedy stores. Those are A rooms. That's where you're going to see people that you see on TV. B rooms are where you will see people that are funny, but are not famous, right? To put in perspective, I headline B rooms. I don't headline A rooms yet, right?
Yes.
So long story short, B rooms are fun. They are great. But where they lack is the professionalism of an A room. So they don't seat the audience. They don't police the audience and say, hey, you can't talk back, blah, blah. And so it's just, we have a saying in comedy, I felt like I was having to fight them to drag out the laughs tonight, right? And so pretty much pick any B room in the country. I could name places. I won't name the state, but
not necessarily.
Right? Yeah. Pick any B room in the country, and it can be a challenge. North Carolina, Charlotte, Greensboro, North Carolina, they're a challenge. Now, again, let me make sure I say this. One of the funniest people I've ever worked with in my life is a guy named Raging Cajun John Morgan. Funniest people I've ever met. Headlines, B rooms all over the country. If you ever get a chance to go to what is the name of it? The Looney Bin in Oklahoma City. He is one of the funniest people I've ever met in life. And I want to give a 2-second story. So I'm at this point unless like 2012, 14 or whatever, I'm featuring, but I'm like, oh, I'm ready to be a headliner. I'm the shit. No headliner can follow me. I'm the shit. So I'm featuring. Featuring means you're in the middle guy. So I go up and I'm like, oh, he ain't gonna be able to follow me. I do 30 minutes and I kill it. This guy goes up after me, gets a standing ovation in the first 6 minutes. I said, who is this dude? Raging Cajun John Morgan. What the funniest is that?
Just take your notebook, put it right back in your pocket. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm taking myself and I'm going home. I'll see y'all later, man. I'm going. And continue to do that all weekend, just so you know what in the audience did it all weekend, right? Just a beast of a comedian. And so you do get that at a B room. It's just like if you watching music and you'll go to one of those juke joints in Louisiana and you'll see some of the best music you've ever seen. You're like, who is this guy?
They're just not necessarily mainstream known. It doesn't mean they're how funny they are. I say this about the cruise whenever we're on any of the different charters. One of the first things I say in other rooms, not the main room, is we don't view this as not the main. These are all main rooms to us.
Right.
Every room on a cruise ship, even though it's smaller, it just means it's a different energy. It's a different ambiance. It's a different experience. And that's what we're chasing. I mean, you know, Peebo's going to play the main room. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that the young lady or young man singing down in the Ocean Bar or in this venue or up at the pool right now is not lights out.
That's exactly right.
They just haven't made it with the success that Peebo has. And so, you know, Peebo come in. And I mean, you know, Peebo's Peebo. It's Peebo Bryson, for God's sake, you know, so he plays in that room, right? But those other rooms are still full of killer acts. And that's
remember the act that was playing, they do the saxophone on the same level as the comedy club.
Yeah.
And they're doing this. And I remember walking out of the comedy club, hearing the saxophone and just stopping like, whoa, this is amazing.
That's actually Chris Harden, and he's one of my closest friends from right here in Portland.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. Man, that dude, oh my God. But that dude was amazing.
And he's one of several we have, right? I mean, UGO as a band, and then Kimberly Sundstrom, and, you know, on down the list, there's just monsters. Stan Davis. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good musicians. But before we go too deep into that.
Okay.
Again, we talked about this before, and, you know, I know that's broken record at this point, so I'm sorry, everybody. I had asked in the opening bit about structuring a set. And I think that's an important bit that I don't want to lose out in this talk, because I know we for whatever reason, it didn't get recorded. You discussed having your daughter and how and why you put certain things in certain places. Discuss the anatomy of a comedy set.
Yeah, that's great. So and we talked about it a little earlier. I think that's so important. So comedy, even though it's one person talking, comedy is a conversation. And the audience is talking through laughter and through facial expression.
Body language.
Else, right? Right. But so it's a conversation. And so the best way to start a conversation is to establish a rapport. right? You and I do it initially. Hey, how you doing? What's going on in Portland? What's going on in LA? You good? We're establishing rapport.
Mm-hmm.
So I set up my set so that I can establish a rapport of this is who I am, because I realize that what I look like when I walk on stage and the perspective that people get is not necessarily the reality. The perspective people get is young black guy in a suit, attractive, maybe a player, maybe he's pretty smooth, whatever. Now, when I initially go into talking about my daughter, oh, that shatters that entire perspective, right? Now it's, oh, he's a dad. Oh, he's just like me. Oh, he's dealing with, trying to, get black Band-Aids and put people to bed by nighttime just like me.
Did you call Africa?
Exactly, right? Right? And so we're dealing with those two. We're breaking.
That's a joke in your set, by the way, just in case anyone thinks I'm being smart ass. That's a joke in your set. Yeah.
All y'all got to do is go to TrentDavis.com. You can see the Black Band-Aid joke. But so it establishes that rapport, and it makes them say, oh, and the goal for me is to say, oh, even though he's in a suit and he's performing and he's on stage, we're more alike than we are different, right? Yeah. Also, the strategy on that, and I'll be honest, is get the women to like you. If the women like you, the audience likes you. If just the guys like you and you piss the women off, it's not going to be a great show. No,
it's lights out, because they would rather not cheer for you and give you anything but go home with a happy lady than the other way around. It's funny. It's funny because it's the same way. I think it's the same way in entertainment as a whole, right?
Okay.
And this is not a hot take. Nor do I mean this to be overly arrogant or narcissistic, but when I was in my good old fashioned younger days, I was a host on cruise ships, and I did it for almost 15 years, from age 20 to my young 30s. I was a host.
Okay.
And I finally figured out how to play. To your point, I used to kind of play my role, and I figured out when I was really young, I started, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I was wrong half the time. I was just up there trying to do my best. But as I kind of refined it, men don't really care. And I could have a husband and wife walk up, and literally the husband would be holding his camera or his phone and go, "My wife loves you. She thinks you're X. Can she have a picture with you?"
Yes.
Great. Boom. You made her night, man. Thank you, brother. No problem, bro. No problem. Right. Let that be the other way around. Let that be the other way around.
Right.
Let me be a beautiful young lady cruise host, and a wife is not necessarily, and I don't mean to pigeonhole, but necessarily wives aren't going to walk up and go, "My husband thinks you're beautiful. Can he have a," right? That's not how it works.
That's exactly right.
You have to appeal to the ladies. And I think that's true though in marketing. I think that's true in sales in general. I mean, women rule the household for the most part. And the men would rather have what's the old saying? Happy life, happy wife. I mean, that's the same. Exactly right. It's an old adage for a reason. And I don't find it to be too sexist. I don't find it to be too obtuse or ignorant of the times. I think there's reality to that.
But if you look at it, for most households, the wife determines 85 to 90% of the spending. Now the husband determines, this is my job, this is where we live. So we live in Portland.
Yeah.
But once we decide we live in Portland, your wife then decides, all right, this is what side of Portland we're going to live in. This is the house we're going to live in. This is the color of the drapes. This is the color of the carpet. This is the hardwood floor, right? So you've decided the big one. She decided all 90 under that.
And for everyone watching, please understand, we're painting with a very large brush right now. And we understand how large of a brush we're painting with. This is not all men and women. This is just a general thing. And this is, it's also a science. It's also marketing 101. This is not something that you can't go to any online or, brick and mortar university in the world, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. Exactly.
That's exactly
what we're talking about.
And let's ask the question. Who decides, you and I are both in entertainment, whether it's comedy, whether it's cruises, but who decides what vacation we're going on?
Oh, absolutely. My wife decides. 100%.
100%.
100%.
100%, right? Who decides the date nights?
Yeah.
The wife. The wife decides the date. Now,
Yeah.
honey, we're going on a date night. You're going to be there. I've got a sitter. Be ready. Put on your gray slacks and shut up. That is exactly how it happens, all right? And Jason is being nice. I'm not. I'm telling you this is how it happens. This is the science. This is a fact. It's not me choosing or pontificating. This is a fact of life. Women decide where we're going to eat, right? Because the last thing you want to do is pick a place that she doesn't want to eat. She's like, well, you chose it. Now I'm going to sit here and not eat and have water. Oh, that's going to be a great date night. No, nobody in America wants that. And
I will find something to eat anywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the science behind it. When I talk about being a parent and when I talk about being a father to a daughter, it endears them. And I'm going to say this is a little bit crass, but it's true. Is if I talk about being a father and having a daughter, the first 10 minutes, I can then later do a joke about dating a rescue wife later and she not hate me, right? I can then do that later because she's already on my side.
She's on your team.
Yeah.
Speaking of your daughter, what's on your whiteboard there behind you? What's on your flip chart? What do we got going on there?
So this is Harlan's. If you just, I'm gonna keep going. If you go there, that's my daughter's room. I share custody with her. I have her every other weekend, and Monday and Tuesday and every other weekend. So this is her drawing. As we've all been in this quarantine, and so now Daddy does crafts. Oh, right. We're doing crafts every day.
What kind of crafts is Daddy doing?
Yeah. So this one is what do we do? Oh, we made slime. We made slime in the freezer. Yeah, so we did. It's boring, but it's fun. If you got kids, you got to do crafts. And so we did. We used soap and something else, and made our own slime and put it in the freezer. And she was writing the instructions for that.
Got it. Well, it looks well. Are we doing math on there as well? Is that 25 and 25? Is she your agent? Is she negotiating? She's negotiating your next contract. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right, man.
How old is Harlan?
Harlan is 7. She'll be 8 May 8th. May 12th. And I'm worried because I was like, I'm hoping this thing will be done so we can have her a party. But the other part of me doesn't want it to be done because I've already promised her I'd give her a yes day. For any dads out there that don't know what a yes day is, a yes day means she gets to go to any store she wants, and I have to say yes to everything she asks for. And I think it's going to cost me $1,000.
Janine, I know you're listening. We should probably book Trenton on another Soul Train cruise.
Please, as soon as you can.
Just to pay for Yes Day.
Right.
For any dads out there watching, this is a very bad idea. Please don't do Yes Day.
It's a very bad idea.
Or pick the store and then allow them to do yes within the store that you've already defined.
That's exact. Now the good thing is she's
Dollar
7,
store.
not 7. She's 7, not 17. And so she's not choosing Gucci yet. She's choosing Target, Walmart, and Michael. So I'm good, okay?
You say that, but it's a learned behavior. She's gonna Yes Day is gonna happen for a while, and
I
know.
Hi,
Daddy. I'm at Jaguar. Yeah.
Hey man, this has been a great conversation, man. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me.
I loved having you on, and I appreciate you taking the time. And I know we've beat it to death, but I apologize for that little technical snafu. What happened there? I hope we got the first half. If we didn't, we'll put it on. If we did not to worry, all those folks watching, we recovered most all of it. So
nice, yeah. So, and let's do it again. If we get a chance and we need more content, let's do it again.
Absolutely. And before we get out of here, and we'll run it across the bottom for you, where can people find you on social and online?
Yeah, please. Thank you. That's a great segue. Please follow me. I'm at Trenton Comedy. It really helps in Hollywood. Producers and directors make casting decisions based on the number of Twitter followers you have. So please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. On everything, I'm at Trenton Comedy. Trenton like
RENTONCOMEDY at Trenton Comedy.
Follow me there. If you have SiriusXM, find me on SiriusXM. If you have them in Spotify, find me on Spotify. Thank you so much, man. I thank you for Star Vista. Thank you for the Soul Train cruise. I had a ball, man.
It's a pleasure. I really appreciate you. And for all you folks out there watching, whether you're from the Soul Train cruise or one of the other Star Vista Live cruises, really appreciate you tuning in for this hour with Trenton and I, as we broke down a whole bunch of stuff, kind of
Yeah.
the anatomy of comedy here, and many other things. A very intriguing conversation. And Trenton, I appreciate you opening the door to us, and we'll surely reach back out here. And I guess before we go, I also would leave one last thing. As a funny guy, for sincerity's sake, anything you'd like to share with all the folks out there? Obviously, everyone's going through a little bit of something right now. Some people
Yeah.
are afraid. Some people are stuck inside. Most people are stuck inside. Some people are afraid. Some people see the end. Some people don't. You know, some people have endured the worst. Any messages you want to share with the folks?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. So I would leave two things with everybody, right? First thing is don't be alarmed, right? Realize that where we are, this too shall pass. Second thing is use this time to be your best self. And specifically, I'm using it to write, whether I'm writing comedy or writing sitcoms and writing a book, just trying to be my best self. Use this time to become your best self. Use this time to become close to your loved ones. And, you know, just know that it won't last like this forever.
That's a great message, and I appreciate those comments. Those are, I think it's, you know, we all live in a space right now where there's some unsurety, there's some alarm, you know, right and wrong and otherwise. And I feel like the media and social media, and they're doing their job. I'm not taking a jab at people, but you know, we're an alarmist society. We love news flash. We love, oh my God, right? We love it as a people. We love it. So, but when you step into the world of scary like this, it does not benefit us. And you know, I would encourage people kind of the same, just to try to take news from multiple sources, try to balance things out a little bit. Don't take it just from the one you usually do. Try to listen to multiple sides. And even if you don't agree with someone, listen. You know, I think we can learn a lot from listening to people that, even if they're not whether you do or do not follow the president, whether you do or do not follow Dr. Fauci, whether you do or do not follow, you know, CNN or Fox or whatever, it benefits to hear all sides, even the stuff that you think is ridiculous, you still hear it. And, you know, you better understand, even if you don't agree with it, you still better understand the depth and, you know, the breadth and the complexity of the whole thing.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Well,
all right,
sir,
well, you stay safe. Tell your wife and family I said hello. Janine, thank you.
Yours. And I'm gonna throw this out to all our fans watching. Thanks to all of you. Thank you again for watching. Again, I'm Jason, your virtual cruise host, and this is the one and only Mr. Trenton Davis. Have a wonderful day, my friends. Keep it tuned to this YouTube channel for more programming soon. Be well, friends.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.